So I want to do a little rant and a little background about my wife's bank. Now, I don't feel any shame in naming it. It's kind of going to give away an area of the country I'm in, but my wife banks with Five Star Bank. Now, she made a mistake. Made a purchase on her card that she shouldn't have. Did something through, like Google, and it started charging her card over and over again. So she did the right thing. She reported to the bank, tried to put in a dispute on it. She had authorized the one transaction and they just kept debiting her account over and over, like every couple of weeks. Now, when she went in and reported it, they should have closed her card. When she said, hey, this is fraud, the card should have been closed right away. That way, no other transactions could go through on it. And that's the impression we were under. She was told the card was closed, nothing else would go on. And instead, they didn't do anything. They disputed the transactions, left the card open, so another transaction came through a couple weeks later. Now, we've been waiting for a replacement debit card for quite some time, which creates a hassle because now she's got to go to the bank to withdraw money. It's definitely an inconvenience, having to deal with cash because we've gone to this more cashless everything debit society. So she's going through this struggle, having to go after work every couple of days to get cash to be able to buy groceries, do this and that, because we're under the impression they did their part and closed out the card. Well, when that other transaction went through, obviously we're upset. She's upset. You know, we could have been using the card the entire time, which we shouldn't have, just because it creates a little bit more of a problem. But they didn't do their part. Now, I used to work for Chase Bank a long time ago, in a previous job. And I used to love shutting people's cards down because back when I did it, it was the age of try this ab flexor belt, or here's this free trial, just pay the shipping and handling. And it would always have that little fine print on it that if you don't return the product within X amount of days or contact us to cancel, we will automatically bill your card X amount of dollars. And it would always be in the terms and conditions that nobody reads. I'm guilty of it, you're guilty of it. None of us read the terms and conditions unless it's our job to read the terms and conditions and rub it in somebody's face that they didn't read the terms and conditions. Let's just be completely honest. So I would close the card immediately because they're telling me it's fraud, and then say, hey, I'll put in the dispute, but if we find out that you authorized the transaction, the dispute would be denied. You're still going to be out your card, you know, and close the card right then and there. There were more than a few occasions where people said, no, no, it was actually me, but that would be like days later. They call and be like, yeah, no, I realized it was me. Well, sorry, the card's closed. I can't do anything. Or there were ones where they would call in heated because I was one of the managers. They would call in, they'd be utterly pissed off, and they'd be like, "I didn't do this transaction. I'm nowhere near that Walmart." Whatever. And I would, as soon as they said they didn't do the transaction, I closed the card, and then I would go through as they're talking, taking the information. I'd go through their account history. Be like, "Well, you spent X amount of money here at this same Walmart." Just using that as an example. 2 weeks ago for this, 3 weeks ago for this, are all of the, I'd go through a whole list because we would be able to see transaction ID, which would have the location, the dollar amount, all that. Because cards could also be spoofed back then too. So I wouldn't know if your card was cloned or not. And in some cases, they'd be like, okay, you got me, you got me. I did it. I was just trying to get the stuff for free because I didn't like how it was. Or it broke days later. I'm like, well, that's a transaction you need to take up with the merchant. handle your refund through Walmart, and then they'd give me a story of, well, I did, but I didn't have the receipt, so they wouldn't do this or that. But either way, then they'd start getting mad, like, okay, turn my card back on. Like, no, that's not happening. You basically were committing fraud. Now, in our situation, my wife wasn't really committing fraud. She had authorized the one transaction. She did her due diligence, tried to get a couple back that she didn't notice right away, which that happens. You got to keep a close eye on your bank account because in this day and age, a charge can come out of nowhere. There's skimmers everywhere. You have to keep a close eye just for your own security. So a couple had gone through. She tried to dispute them. They said, no, you authorized it. Okay, we accepted that and ate it. It's not that big of a deal. Granted, yeah, it sucks to be out, 60, $70 that we weren't counting on being out of. But when she did her part, they should have closed the card right then and there so that another transaction after when she reported the problem could not have gone through. So, long story short, she goes in to report, hey, my card was supposed to be closed. This transaction should have never been able to go through because you guys closed my card. What's going on here? Why did you allow this? Oh, the card was never closed. So weeks ago when they told her they did their part and closed the card, they never closed the card. So she tried to dispute the transaction, and once again they came back with, well, you authorized it. It's your fault. Eat the money. If you're gonna try and get it back, you got to go to whatever company in Singapore or Malaysia that's using the Google to create this transaction. And my wife is like, "You're missing the point. If my card would have been closed in the first place, the way it was supposed to have been, this transaction would have never gone through. This is your fault. You need to help correct the issue and get me back this money." So they're claiming today that this has been a month, over a month that we've been dealing with this. They're claiming today that the money will be back in her account and everything will be fine. But the bottom line is, if they'd have done just a little bit of extra work, closed the card like they should have, just to prevent additional fraud, because nowadays anybody can come up with a Google, anybody can get a card skimmer. The second you are being told that there is fraudulent activity on an account, you need to close that avenue of entry into the account. Be it a debit card, you can freeze checking and savings accounts, just to prevent further loss of funds and prevent, massive problems. But they didn't do their part. They did not protect their customer. And when my wife went in to address the issue that, hey, you guys messed up, she was treated like it's her fault. Like she's continuing to do it when she was told her card was closed. And she got treated utterly rudely by these representatives, which is unacceptable. You know, I can understand customer service isn't easy, but you need to own up to your mistake. You didn't do what you needed to do. If I made mistakes back in the day when I worked for a bank, I would overnight out a card. I would do what I needed to do with my back office to get the overdraft fees taken care of, get the transaction disputed, and go the extra mile to help my customer. We're not seeing that with Five Star. Got to jump through hoops. They treat us like we're the ones who, on purpose, made this mistake, and we're trying to get them out of hundreds of thousands of dollars when it's really like a $17 transaction that we're trying to get back, but we're being treated like, or at least she's being treated, and by proxy, since we're married, we're being treated like we're criminals. We're trying to do something fraudulent, trying to rob them of lots of money. No, we accept the response from that first initial dispute. My wife understands, yeah, I messed up. there might have been a terms and conditions somewhere or a subscription that I didn't know about. So even though it sucked, she came to terms with the fact she was out all those transactions. But the bottom line is, if they'd have done their part in the first place and closed it when she took the time to go into the bank to dispute the transactions and say, "Hey, I'm not authorizing these transactions." Yes, and she pointed it out. I authorized this one, and they did their dispute process, found that she had authorized other ones back in June or July, which that gave carte blanche to be able to debit the account whenever they want, and there was no way for her to dispute it. She's instantly authorized every transaction known to man, and there's nothing on her end that she can do to change the situation. Every dispute, even the one that they messed up on and didn't close the card for, it's her fault. She's out that money. There's a shocking lack of customer service nowadays, or people caring enough about their job, that it's just insane. When I did this for a living, I made sure my customers knew what was going on, that their accounts were safe, they knew how to prevent it in the future. And in some cases, when the customer was a total asshole and deserved it, it was fun to close their cards and it was fun to close their accounts. And trust me, I've got plenty of stories of things that have happened. Like one day I took a call where a woman was calling trying to get the numbers to corporate because she wanted to sue because her husband got electrocuted by the ATM. And she's yelling, ranting, and raving. But what she's neglecting to tell anyone when she calls in, which I eventually got out of her, is that her husband's card got stuck in the ATM because it was bent. He was irritated that it was stuck in the ATM. And what he ended up doing was pulling over a trash can. He was a short guy. Peed in the ATM and somehow managed to electrocute himself, causing burns, him to be locked in there, and erectile dysfunction. Which, hey, you deserve it. You want to destroy property, people's deposits, because what he did is he opened up the deposit side of it and peed directly into the ATM. Anybody who's done customer service for any length of time has similar horror stories, if not worse than I do. But I mean, take pride in your work. Do the right thing and protect your customer. And nowadays it just doesn't seem like a lot of businesses are going that same route, which to me is depressing and unfortunate. But I wanted to get it off my chest cuz it's annoying to me that it's something that 10 plus years ago when I used to work in that same exact style of employment, I would go the extra mile and take care of my people, explain how to prevent it, do what I needed to do to get what was rightfully owed to them back, after doing all the research and putting in the legwork. And these people at Five Star just will not do it, and they want to treat us horribly. So I would say watch what you're doing if you're in an area that has them. If you don't, consider yourself lucky. But, if you got a banking institution that treats you right, appreciate it. And I also want to say GG to my computer players in this match that was silently playing in the background. They did absolutely fantastic. I thought they took me to this map because the shroud didn't flip, and I made sure they all died. But my rant about Five Star is over, just like this video is, and I'll catch everybody later.